When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Iran will thrive as never before. Global investment, massive tourism, brilliant technological innovation based on the tremendous talents that exist inside Iran. Doesn't that sound better than endless poverty, repression, and war? Don't let a small group of fanatic theocrats crush your hopes and your dreams.
This is the policies adopted by our enemy to sow the seeds of division, to sow the seeds of sedition, and to drive a wedge among all the Muslims. The enemies of the Muslim nations are the same enemies to the Palestinians, to the Lebanese, to the Egyptians, and to the Iraqis. They are the enemies to the Yemeni people, to the Syrian people. Our enemy is one.
I can tell you with certainty that 95% of the people in Iran, they don't want the Islamic regime. The regime basically has no support from within, from the people. If you remember, on April 13, when the regime attacked Israel, the first thing that the regime did, they put anti-riot forces on the streets because they were more afraid of the people rising up than even Israel attacking back. So that's why they were so scared.
And the policies adopted by the enemy in these various countries vary. On one occasion, it is a psychological warfare. In another, it is an economic warfare. And in a third country, it is a military warfare. Their operation room is one. They receive the same orders, and their orders is to target and hit the Muslim peoples. If their policies of sowing the seeds of division succeed in one country, they may prevail in one country, and once they seize control of one country, they move to the other.
And I think they're very sensitive to the fact that Iran's leadership is in a much more fragile position with their domestic population. And I think they may be more sensitive to that than the United States is. We share intelligence, so I'm assuming both of us are aware of it, but the Israelis are more sensitive to it in terms of wanting to do something about it. The United States, I don't think, wants to do anything about it, to be frank about it.
Therefore, we should be vigilant. We should be conscious. We should be aware. When we see the enemies moving to target one Muslim people, we should remain conscious and we should act in support of those people, simply to foil the schemes of the enemy. Once the enemy succeeds in their scheme in one country, they move to the other. For years, the Arab and Muslim nations have been unaware, yet today we must remain vigilant. We should roll up our sleeves from Afghanistan to Gaza to Lebanon. We should move and act. We should roll up our sleeves, get prepared for action.
Somebody is willing to risk absolutely everything for their cause. There is a brazen courage that comes with that, and the Iranian government is willing to do whatever it takes to achieve their aim, which is to wipe out Israel. So we have to take that seriously.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the people of Iran directly, saying, "Don't let a small group of fanatic theocrats crush your hopes and your dreams." So is Iran ripe for revolution, and what's the likelihood the people of Iran would rise up?
That's the golden question. The people of Iran have tried to rise up. 2 years ago, with the death of Mahsa Amini, there was a lot of bloodshed and a lot of suffering as a result of their protesting and standing up against their government. It's a tough fight. They're willing to fight it. They're willing to pay whatever it takes to take down their government. We've seen Iranian people take to social media and invite Israel to attack them on their own soil. Whatever it takes to weaken and dismantle their government, they're ready to have it. So Iran's government, their days are numbered, but how it's going to happen, we'll have to watch and see.
In your view, do most Iranians share the government's hatred for Israel?
Absolutely not. No, I was brought up in the country and I was conditioned to hate Israel and America. As a schoolgirl, we had to wake up every morning and chant death to America, death to Israel. All our teaching, our education, all the propaganda and the news on the walls, everything was set up to have us hate these two countries. And yet we don't. So I think that's testament in itself. The fact that thousands of young people who grew up in that same environment took to the streets and shouted death to the dictator, having been instructed to shout death to Israel and death to America their whole lives, goes to show that no matter how hard the government tries, they cannot turn their people against these countries.
What's going on with the Iranians here? I believe the Iranians have been back on their heels for some time now. Ever since Hanaya was killed in their high security zone where many of their senior leaders live. And they promised retaliation, and 8 weeks later, I think we're almost in the 9th week, there's finally some retaliation. Well, certainly Iran launching 200 missiles against Israel is a significant event in itself, but also providing early warning that that event is taking place is also pretty significant. My Israeli sources, relatively high, told me that Hamas, very frustrated with Iran over this. Hezbollah, very frustrated that they didn't get more support out of Iran. And I think the Iranians are calculating they want their proxies to do the work for them. That was the concept from the beginning. But I believe that given the tenuous situation that they have domestically in the country, my sources also tell me it's a much more fragile situation than many people realize. So what's the early warning all about? I think that's what it's all about, is letting Israel know the attack is coming, about when it's coming, to minimize the casualties so there is not a very effective response back on Iran that would put pressure on that domestic population. And I think that's exactly what we should do, frankly. And I think the United States should make up its mind to take the Houthis off the board. They have shut down the Suez Canal for months. They fired on U.S. Navy warships with anti-ship ballistic missiles, and we're still playing defense with these guys. It makes no sense whatsoever. I'm assuming the United States had a role to play tonight in helping Israel, and that's certainly very worthy, and we've got enormous capability. And I think the Israelis will probably attack sooner rather than later. Well, I think they'll calculate that they responded very lightly the last time, just taking down an air defense facility right outside Natanz, which is a nuclear enterprise. They did that internally from the country. And I think they wanted to show a little bit of leg there that they could do something like that and not have to penetrate Israeli airspace. But at the same time, you know, they weren't doing any real damage. This time, I think they're going to take some action. It likely will be more forcible, more comprehensive. But also, you have to keep in mind the main effort that Israel is conducting right now is where? It's in Lebanon. They've got a ground incursion going on, and they've got a systematic campaign to take down as many leaders as they can and as much of the rocket launchers and missiles and other infrastructure that they have there. So that is their main effort. But I do think that they'll seize the opportunity that the Iranians have presented to them. And even though there's no casualties here, I mean, this is a major event. Yeah. 200 ballistic missiles is significant. And I don't see how the Israelis can ignore that and just go punch back lightly like they did the last time. Yeah, well, you put your finger right on it. And I don't want to be Pollyannish about it and say, you know, there's going to be an overthrow of the regime, you know, next week or so. But it takes time. And I think it is time to push back here and certainly develop that situation. And what the Israelis have done in Lebanon is absolutely stunning and unprecedented in my frame of reference. I think it's something they've been planning, obviously, for a very long time. And Netanyahu made a commitment to up his game here. He knew full well the United States wasn't with him. Yes. What the United States wants to do is stop. They want to stop all the shooting in Gaza. Biden said that. In Lebanon. Just stop it. Stop it with the Houthis. And take the status quo. And the status quo is totally unsatisfactory to the Israelis.